Well, it's really good to see everybody. Super excited that everyone is here. Again, I want to just do a shout out if you wanted to go back and check out any of the past presentations. They're up on the Women in Drones library, and that would be not only for the Coffee Connection, but also for Fireside Chat. So you can go to either one of them and check those out. And then
Are you there?
What?
Yeah, whatever.
Somebody's, oh, I thought was saying something. So moving forward, I would like to go ahead and get started with our spotlight speaker for this morning. We are super excited to have Adam here with us. He's going to be sharing about his company and the whole journey of using drones and his inspiration in the whole agricultural industry. So Adam, thank you for joining us this morning, and I'm going to bump you over to being spotlight, and we just thank you for being here.
Good morning. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. I've got a fun little story to tell that has a lot of pictures that go with it. So we'll just we'll kick that off here. Everybody see my screen okay?
Looks wonderful. Yes.
All right. So as Desi had said, my name's Adam Gittins. I'm the general manager for HTS Ag. We can get the slides to advance here. A little about me. So I actively farm 500 acres of corn and soybeans here in Southwest Iowa. I've worked in precision agriculture now for a little over 20 years. I am a FAA Part 107 certified remote pilot. The 107.29 night waiver is not really all that important anymore with the new rules, but I did jump through those hoops way back when and had my night waiver. And I'm currently serving with Sharon on the CompTIA Drone Advisor Council as a former co-chair with Sharon, actually. So that was a lot of fun. A little about us. HTS Ag was originally started in 1995. We're celebrating our 26th anniversary this year. And we are technology integrators. We utilize technology to make farmers more profitable. We're one of the largest ag litter technology dealers in Iowa, and we're also an OPI Advanced Grain Management Channel Partner. I know that's probably foreign language to everybody on this call, but if it's electronic and it's in agriculture, we probably have our fingers in it somewhere. Things that you probably have heard of or may have heard of, some of the things we carry in the drone space. We work with Autel Robotics, Drone Deploy, DJI, Air Data, and our most recent partnership is with Helio, a spray drone company, which I'll talk a little more about that here in a few minutes. But ultimately, what do? We provide high-tech solutions for agriculture. And so we really sit at the crossroads of technology and agriculture, and we're able to share with our customers what pieces of technology have the best return on investment. And drones with aerial imagery have become a really quick way for that to happen. So our footprint, I guess, you can't hardly see Iowa behind there, but that's just kind of a rough map of who we serve and where our customers are. We're kind of scattered all over the place, but really focused right here in the Midwest. So I thought this was an interesting quote from Albert Einstein. The only source of knowledge is experience. And we really feel strongly about this. Our experience, my experience, starts back with a Parrot AR drone 2.0. Desi and I had a little laugh about this before the call started this morning. This was the first, what I would call real drone. It had a camera. It had some pretty cool technology. I had some, I'll call them toys prior to this that were maybe would fit the category of drone, but this is what I considered to be the first real drone that I had. And as you can see in the pictures, it crashed a lot. And so I got really good at repairing drones, but this was pretty neat. The picture on the right there was the last time I repaired it. After the picture on the left, I broke the cross frame. I completely disassembled the whole drone, put a new cross frame in it, put it all back together. And I was so excited. I went outside of my house and I took off out in my yard and I watched this thing sail off into the sunset, never to be seen again. And I got to thinking, if I just had another drone, maybe I could go find that drone. So the next day I go out and I buy a DJI Phantom 3 Professional. And I flew around where I thought that one might be, couldn't find it. And I was like, it'd be really cool if I could pre-program a flight and just like make a map of the whole area. And that's how I stumbled across Drone Deploy. So this is a map of a soybean field, or a portion of a soybean field. It's the first map I ever made with Drone Deploy. And I went out and flew off that area where I thought the drone was able to stitch together a bunch of images and make that high resolution map. Still never did find the drone. We even ran the combine through the field, never found the drone. So it was not even in the field that I thought it might be in. But it led me down a path of seeing, oh, hey, I can make a map of this. I can do some neat stuff. And really in seeing that and understanding how that all worked, that is what kind of springboarded us into where we're at today. So drone mapping in agriculture has become a big thing for us. We're able to utilize, you see here, it's a Phantom 4 Pro. And we've got one of the guys here out flying that and shooting some pictures of a soybean field in the background there. But we can fly the fields, we can stitch things together, we can get high resolution maps. We can also very quickly just get a panorama of a field. So this is a live panorama I took. I mentioned taking off from my house. So I'm going to spin this around so we're facing the right direction. If we look down, that's my house. This is the field. So that Drone Deploy map that I showed you, the first one, was out in this field where I thought that drone had went, but obviously it must have kept going on to the north, never to be seen again. But this 360-degree panorama we're looking at, this is done in Drone Deploy. Took the drone straight up over my house, just short of 400 feet in the air. Took about 16 photos looking around. And the thing is, I've got some incredible resolution where I can zoom in on that and see a really big area real quick. And that took just a matter of a few minutes to be able to fly. So we utilize drones for a number of different reasons. We can assess damage if we've got some damage out in the field. This is some very early season soybeans, and these photos were taken from 400 feet in the air. Those rows, those little lines you see are rows of soybeans, and the soybeans are about this tall, and we're able to see them from the air. Those are actually about 30 inches apart in between those rows. So we're zoomed in pretty tight. But something interesting here, you can see that I stopped the planter. We had little piles of seed there. So those are all soybeans. And then I backed up and set the planter down and took off again. And we were able to pick that up very clearly from the drone. We can see what wind damage does to crops, and just a matter of what it does over a period of time. So on August 10th, we flew this field. We were able to see where the wind damage was. August 21st, same spot in the same field, and then August 31st. So just about every 10 days here, and how that progresses, we're able to really get a good idea of what's going on. This is some more wind damage, but this really speaks volumes, because what happened was when the farmer went out and planted this, half of the planter had one hybrid in it and the other half had another hybrid in it. And so we've got these streaks where we've got corn that's standing perfectly and corn that is completely flat. And it just alternates all the way across the field, just from a genetic selection of different hybrids. And so we can very clearly see that from the air. Last summer, we had a derecho wind event roll through Iowa. And so these, to put this in perspective, back up one here. Those are normal sized vehicles. These grain bins are about 100+ feet across in diameter. This is a very, very large grain elevator site, and just massive amounts of damage that we were able to capture utilizing that drone. So this tower structure here is probably every bit of 150, maybe pushing close to 200 feet tall, just to give you some perspective of what we're looking at there. We can utilize the drone to start understanding what flooding damage looked like in a field. So we've got some spots. This is after a flood had happened, and then it had dried up. We're able to pick out where these pinpoints are in the field. We tell the software what damage looks like, and then we're actually able to see through this SkyClaim, through some automation, we're able to see what amount of the field was actually damaged. So about 86.4% of that field was damaged in that flood. So this is that same field across from my house. I fly it a lot, for obvious reasons. I don't have to put shoes on to go fly this field, right? I can just step out my door, I can see the whole field, and I can fly it real quick and easy. But there's a lot of things going on in this one image here. So we've got, again, a 2 different hybrid scenario where we did a split planter setup. There's a flooded out spot right up through the middle of the field here. We've got some washouts where we've got some water that has washed some ditches down through the field. We've got some thin spots showing up in the side hills here. And then we've even can do a 3D model of that field by just using the drone images that we fly and stitch through drone deploy. One of the big tools we use, you've probably heard a lot of people talking about multispectral cameras, and I think they're great. However, for corn and soybeans, for what we call broad acre crops here in the Midwest, the price point for a multispectral camera far exceeds what we're able to see for value compared to what else is out there. So we are flying fields and just utilizing an RGB camera and using this very algorithm, and we get a false NDVI, or a false vegetative index, that can actually generate very similar to what you would get from a multispectral camera. But you can do this with a Phantom 4, a Autel Evo, or an Evo 2, anything that you can fly a mission with and stitch images and load into drone deploy. We can run this algorithm against that and just pick up the greenness differences to be able to understand how that crop health is in that field. People then ask me, okay, well, how does that compare? We've got that false NDVI. When we go across the field with the combine, we have sensors on the combine that we can measure within 1% of accuracy what the actual yield is. And so this is a false NDVI map shot in July compared to the actual yield map of the combine going across the field that is absolute and exact. And you can see, we've got this spot here showing up, which shows up pretty clearly here. We've got some striping going this way. That very clearly shows up in the field here. Just a phenomenal, we've got the red spots up on the far edge of the field. Just a phenomenal representation of what is actually out there and taken in July versus October. We're harvesting the crop right now, but we knew in late July what to expect that would be out there in that field. This is some more wind damage. We flew tens of thousands of acres last year when the derecho went through Iowa. It just impacted so many of our customers, and we went out and flew a whole bunch of stuff, but we're able to determine, how much of that field is damaged, where is it damaged, what from the RGB image, we can go see what might be out there for debris that blew off of a building or a structure. Just an awful lot of things that we can learn from flying those fields. Now, we talked a little bit about the NDVI and the Very algorithm. So here's just kind of a quick cross-section comparison at different price points, utilizing, if you look here at a Phantom 4 with this RGB and this Very algorithm for about $1,000, $2,000, whatever you want to call it, compared to some of these $26,000 and $29,000 drones with the high-end cameras on them. I really like to use the analogy of, this is my standard definition TV versus a high definition TV. And when I'm treating this with a sprayer that is, 90 or 100 or 120 feet wide, I don't really care about that intense of detail. Knowing where that red spot is good enough for what I need for the broad acre crops. Now, if you're dealing with small acre plots or vineyards or high value crops, that's where the multispectral camera really has a good fit. But corn and soybeans, Very algorithm works really well. Something else we've got in drone deploy that was new this year, we've got the ability to do stand counts. So when the corn is just really small, we call it V2 or second vegetative state, it would be just a matter of a few inches tall. We're able to go fly this field very low. We take a single picture at each one of these spots, and it actually automatically does a stand count while the drone is still in the air. Typically, by the time the drone lands or shortly after landing, I have this map generated with all of those stand counts to know how my planter performed and if there's any spots out there that were washed out, or if we've got any insect issues or anything else going on in the field. I can really get a good indication of what is happening out there very early season. So that's a pretty valuable tool. Now we can even go a level farther than that. Again, this is that field across from my house I showed you a few times. Instead of counting one spot in each acre, so this is about 1 picture per acre or 1 picture per 2 acres, we count every single plant in the field for over 1 million corn plants in that field. And we were within 6% of what the planter was set to be dropping. We had anticipated having 32,000 plants per acre. We counted 228,000 plants per acre. When we have a 95% germination rate on the seed, this is right on the money of what we would expect. So we're really within about 1%. So that was really good to see that come out that well. I'll kind of wrap up here. Our latest endeavor into agricultural drones is this guy. We partnered up with Helio. They're a Texas-based company, a US-based company here. And they make spray drones. This is fully loaded, a 53-pound drone. It's over a 46-inch wingspan, I believe. Carries 2.5 gallons of spray. This is the smallest drone that they make, but we specifically bought this one for demos because of the being under the 55-pound weight limit. So we can fly this with just a Part 107, as long as we're not spraying any active chemicals. To spray chemicals, then of course you need your Part 137 and an aerial applicator's license in addition to the Part 107. Final thoughts here. Your best teacher is your last mistake. This is a Phantom 4 that met the end of its life this summer. As I was flying, we talked about those stand counts. We fly very low to do those, so about 50 feet up. And I was actually hovering and a bird flew up into this back prop here, snapped off that prop. And I often get the question, how far will a quadcopter go on 3 propellers? And the answer to that is all the way to the scene of the crash. So just in case you're wondering, that is the official answer. But it just takes one thing that's outside of your control, and it's a bad day. So you've got to prepare for all of the things as you're out and about and flying these drones. With that, what questions do you guys have? What can I share with you?
Wow. And I love the last comment there. It'll fly all the way to the scene of the crash.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, we do definitely have some questions popping up in there. Couple of them are geared more towards the mitigating your crop damage and such. So I had a question regarding that mitigation. How have you found a value with using the drones and mitigating the crop damage in advance? Has there been huge profitability in that, or is it just keeping on top of it and that's such a thing?
That's such a moving target each year. Oftentimes you don't know what you don't know, and every flight with a drone over a farm field is not necessarily going to provide you valuable information. We will provide an awful lot of flights over. I will go fly a lot of fields where we maybe don't learn anything. We just have verification that everything looks good. And that's not a bad thing. What we are able to see, though, in those times when we've got a problem that pops up, we're able to understand where the problem is and how big the problem is, and then if we can mitigate it or not. Some things are able to be treated if we've got an insect or disease pressure showing up in the field. Oftentimes we can apply a pesticide to correct that or rectify that situation or prevent it from getting larger. If it's flood damage or something like that, we're not going to correct that in season, but it gives us data to lean on, because there's so many dollars and cents when you're talking production agriculture. Of course, all of the crops are insured. And if we know how much of the field is damaged, it gives us some good information to be able to present to our crop insurance adjuster and to be able to settle up a claim very quickly and easily.
So that was actually a great segue to my next question about, especially that accident that you had shown where it wiped out the bats that you had. And so going through that process, that just gave you valid data that you would be able to turn into the insurance company, and then your crop analysis after a situation like that.
Yeah, so we've got, like that flood picture that we showed, where you could pull up and show the insurance adjuster. When they show up to a field, they're going to get that eye level perspective, and they're going to see the part of the field that they're standing in. But it's really hard when you're standing, the old saying is you can't see the forest for the trees. the same would apply when you're standing in a large crop field. You can't really see the whole picture looking at one spot. But when we have that aerial image and we can say, you know what, there's 86.4% of this field that got drowned out, it's really hard for any adjuster to say, no, I don't agree with that. It's pretty easy to say this is accurate data. It's very clear and it's pretty quick to get to. So it's much quicker than any traditional methodology to try and understand what the scope of the damage is in those situations.
Yeah. And I saw that you were using, you talked about Drone Deploy quite a bit.
Yep.
Is that always been your go-to software that you've used?
Yeah, so all the way back to that first map that I made was with Drone Deploy. And then shortly after that, we became a reseller for Drone Deploy. And so our go-to business model right now, HTS Ag, sells the aircraft and sells Drone Deploy software and trains our customers on how to use it. And then, of course, we have spilled into some other sectors with the in-depth knowledge we've got in the industry. We have actually picked up quite a few sales in public safety, construction, photography, insurance companies, roof inspections, all of the different industry verticals. Selling the aircraft and understanding the hardware and being able to provide that knowledge locally has been a really good business model for us.
Awesome. So a couple little comments about the drone farmer. They're loving the name. And then Carolyn had mentioned about the mapping programs and cameras, which we kind of talked about that being used. Can you elaborate a little bit more about the cameras? And because I know you were saying and that your P4P is like your go-to drone that you're using. And so has there been any hindrances with not being able to switch out cameras or anything, or is it just provided all the data that you needed?
Phantom 4 Pro has been a really good staple for us. We've moved an awful lot of them. More recently, we've kind of fallen in love with the Autel Evo aircrafts, the Evo 2s. The resolution is just so much better on the Evo 2 compared to the Phantom 4s. We actually are getting a more detailed, higher resolution map flying and everybody says, well, if you go to the Evo 2, you got to have the Evo 2 Pro with the 6K camera and the 1-inch sensor. And that's probably true depending on what you're trying to do with it. For us, that 8K camera is actually getting us that 48 megapixel picture. At 400 feet, we're getting better resolution of what the ground looks like. And so we can fly more acres faster and longer battery life. That's been our go-to. I was actually out this morning and flew a field to understand elevation and figure out how to drain the field with excess water. Went and flew a field this morning with my Evo 2 Pro or Evo 2 8K.
So you're using the software that comes with their program. Is there any terrain aware feature within that, or do you even need that for what you are doing?
So Drone Deploy does have a terrain awareness feature, and that is utilized heavily we've got, elevation changes of 100+ feet in some of these fields. So terrain following is really important when you're trying to fly at 50 feet and you've got 100 feet worth of elevation change. Yeah. For the stand counts, the DJI product is tied directly to Drone Deploy because you need Drone Deploy to fly it. But for any post-season, any post-stand count missions, just trying to capture a aerial image map, we can still use Drone Deploy to stitch it, but we use the built-in mission planning software in the Autel Explorer app and fly it with the Evo 2 typically.
Awesome.
But I do have both of those aircraft sitting in my office right now. So I've got a Phantom 4 in the corner and an Evo 2 right behind me.
I did see that Evo on your slideshow. And so we were just out flying the Evo yesterday. And then Eric has a comment in here, by the way. Thank you for growing things that we can eat. That's always good, right?
Absolutely.
I'm in an office building where just about everyone here pushes papers around for money rather than doing something directly useful, like making food that we eat. So yes, we do thank you for that, right? And you've been doing it for so long. And so I love that you've transitioned us through the process. What do you think the future is for using drones in agriculture?
So we are hedging our bets on spray drones in a big way. And think about it from this perspective. Aerial application today we hire a plane or a helicopter to come in and spray a field. They can cover a lot of acres really quick, but in the terrain that we're in, where we have so much elevation change, and then we've got trees and we've got other obstacles, they don't do as good of a job as what we can do with a drone, even though they can cover it quicker. But just the economics behind this, the cost to hire an airplane, no chemicals, just the aerial application fee is about $15 per acre. And with a small farmer being somewhere around 1,000 acres now, that's $15,000 a year just for easy math. That you could put that towards the drone. The one I showed you is about a $20,000 setup. Go spray it yourself. You're not going to do it quite as quick, but you can, by year 2, you can pay for the cost of the drone just in what you're going to save in chemical application and doing it yourself. Not to mention, you can get closer to those tree lines, fly a little lower, fly a little slower, get the chemical applied in a little better manner, and do it a little more timely. Because if we have an insect problem in a field, every day that goes by is a significant problem. So if you have to wait a week for an aerial applicator to get there, that becomes an issue. The biggest challenge right now has been trying to navigate the regulatory hurdles around spraying with a drone. So on my desk here, I've got our 16 pages worth of a petition seeking relief for our 44807 with the FAA. And at which time, once we get the petition for exemption approved, then we can apply for our Part 137, which then we also have to have our local state aerial applicators license, commercial applicators license, and a Part 107. So there's a lot of moving pieces and parts to be able to spray with a drone. The final step of that, what we see value in, is then obtaining a swarm waiver and be able to fly multiple aircraft. Because if each of them that can spray 10 or 15 acres per hour, and we can get 2 or 3 of them running, now we're getting to some numbers that start to make sense, and you can cover a lot of acres in a big hurry and be able to do it very efficiently and nearly as quick as an aerial applicator would.
So we have a brighter future ahead. I know things are moving forward. Looks like we do have a question in here from Joanna. Great presentation. Thank you. I am brand new to drone deploy. Any suggestions for a newbie to cut and learn with the learning curve? We have potato, corn, and tree farms here.
Yeah, so with drone deploy, and especially in agriculture, this is counterintuitive to what construction or public safety might be. You're typically better off flying higher versus lower. You don't always get better resolution by flying lower. When we fly higher, because so many of the things in the picture look the same, when we fly higher, we're able to get a bigger view, and it makes it easier for those images to be stitched. Yes, we do sacrifice a little bit of resolution in that. But typically, if I want a really, really high resolution map, I'm going to fly around 2 to 250 feet. But if I'm looking to get, what I would call kind of a standard resolution, somewhere around 1 to 2 inches per pixel, I'm flying right up against that 400-foot limit. I actually have my aircraft set to fly at 394 feet. Just leave me a little bit of a buffer. I figure I'm 6 feet tall. We'll leave 6 feet there. So fly higher, and maybe fly a little bit bigger area than what you need, because we can always cut it down instead of trying to wish you had one more picture on the edge of something.
Great advice. Great tips. And then Eric had posted agrees 100% with hedging of the beds. Often to the Imperial Valley and the crop dusters, there are present some real problems, and safety being one of them. I also had a brief comment from Skip, who's not here today, who was saying about agriculture being such a huge division there in Palm Springs. And so there's so many use cases that are being used for what you're doing.
And safety is one of the things when we talked about aerial applicators, the crop dusters, spray planes, I didn't really touch on, and we really should spend just a minute on. These aerial applicators, every single one of them I've ever seen, there's an airport just 2 miles from our office that a lot of them take off and land from here. And they all will come back in to reload, and they have corn tassels on the landing gear of the aircraft. Now, that's probably not registering for most of you, but I'm going to try and explain this a little bit. A corn plant, when it has a tassel on it, is somewhere around 6 to 8 feet tall. If they have tassels on their landing gear, that landing gear was within 6 feet of the ground at some point. That's dangerous. Every single year we hear about one of these aerial applicators unfortunately crashing the plane, whether they're too heavy at takeoff and they don't quite get the thing up in the air, whether they get too close to a tree, whatever the case may be, they misjudge something. Most of the time, they end up walking away from it. It's the aircraft that's damaged, but it's still a safety factor. And by removing the pilot from the aircraft, we just made that immensely safer. And we can do a really good job with the drone. So we're excited about where the future is headed there.
Awesome. Awesome. And Cody mentioned that the time of day with the clouds and overcast versus sunny has an effect on it as well. Yeah. So, well, if anybody else would like to reach out or ask any questions, do you mind putting your information into our chat so they could maybe do some follow-up and questions if needed? Yes, Sharon says, thanks again, Adam. And we thank you very much. Very informative, great information, and we love what you're doing. So we thank you so much. That kind of wraps it up.